I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch when the boiling water splashed across my skin. My arm sizzled. The pain was instant, sharp, almost blinding. But I just stood there, still, silent, because something inside me had already broken. Long before that moment, it wasn't the burn that hurt the most. It was the look in my son's eyes, cold, detached, like I was nothing more than an inconvenience in his kitchen, like I was furniture that talked too much. I stared down at the angry red blister forming on my forearm and realized something I should have seen years ago. I didn't need their pity. I didn't need their approval. I didn't even need their love anymore. What I needed was my name back. My dignity, my voice, my place in this world, one they had slowly stripped away from me while smiling through gritted teeth. And it started with that house. Not just any house, the house I paid for, the house I built with my husband, the house they thought they owned just because I was too quiet to correct them. But quiet doesn't mean weak, and from that moment on, I wasn't quiet anymore. "Evan," I asked softly, standing near the kitchen sink, towel in hand, "did you pay the electric bill this month?" I didn't mean it as a criticism. It was a simple question. A habit, really. I'd handled the bills for most of my life. Frank and I used to sit down every Sunday evening, spread the envelopes across the table, double-check every cent. It was our rhythm, responsible, quiet, predictable. So asking Evan wasn't nagging, it was reflex. It was care. But he turned like I'd insulted his manhood. His whole body twisted violently, shoulders tight, face flushed. His eyes, the same ones I once kissed goodnight, wiped tears from, stared at while rocking him to sleep, now narrowed in disgust. "Are you serious?" he barked. "You don't know how to pay your own damn bills by now?" He stepped closer, voice rising. "Want me to show you how to swipe a card, old lady? Or should I hold your hand while you type in the PIN?" My mouth opened slightly, but I said nothing. Not out of fear, out of disbelief. This wasn't the boy I raised, or maybe it was, and I'd just been too blind to see what he'd become. "You're always flapping your mouth about things that aren't your business," he continued, pacing now. "You think just 'cause you cooked a few dinners and folded some laundry, you're the queen of this place?" I wanted to say, "I bought this place." I wanted to scream, "This house exists because of me," but I didn't. I stood there, towel still damp in my hand, stomach tight. His wife, Caitlin, entered the kitchen at that moment, barefoot, brows already drawn in annoyance. She barely glanced at me. "Again?" she sighed. "What now?" "Bills," he snapped. "She's micromanaging the damn electric again." Caitlin rolled her eyes. "Why are you even talking to her? Just let her stew." And then it happened. Evan turned back toward the stove. The pot of boiling noodles, the one I had prepared, hissed and frothed over the edges. I thought he was going to turn it off. I thought maybe, for a second, he'd cool down. But instead, he grabbed it, lifted it, and with one swift, brutal motion, he flung it toward me. I didn't see it coming. The water hit my arm first. The searing pain was instant, like fire licking up my skin. I dropped the towel and stumbled back, gasping, clutching the counter behind me to keep from falling. The metal spoon he had dropped clattered to the floor. It echoed in the silence like a scream no one dared let out. I didn't scream either, but inside, something broke wide open. Caitlin shrieked, but not in horror, not in sympathy. She was angry. At the mess, at the drama, at me. "For God's sake," she snapped, stepping forward. "Why do you always stir up crap in this house?" I looked up at her, still holding my arm, already blistering and red. "We feed you. We let you live here, rent-free. And this is what we get? You trying to ruin dinner?" Her voice was sharp, sarcastic, full of venom. Why don't you just get out and die somewhere else already? She spat. We don't care, Helen. You hear me? We don't give a damn. I blinked. Not in pain, that came later, but in shock. Shock at how easily I had become disposable, and how quickly I went from mother to burden, from foundation to furniture. And in the corner of the kitchen, where the light barely reached, Jamie, my grandson, sat still at the small table, his fingers wrapped around a juice box, his eyes wide, silent. He didn't say a word. He just looked at me, like he couldn't quite understand what he'd just witnessed. And that, more than the burn, broke me. I wanted to go to him, to kneel down, hold his hand, and tell him it was okay. But it wasn't okay. And pretending it was for his sake, for theirs, had only ever led me here. Standing in a kitchen I built, being scalded by a boy I raised. The burn was sharp, immediate. My skin hissed like meat dropped onto a hot skillet. I instinctively clutched my arm, biting down on the inside of my cheek to keep from screaming. The pot clanged somewhere near my feet. Water pooled on the floor. Steam rose between us like a ghost that had finally shown its face. But what came next? What came next hurt more than the boiling water ever could. Caitlin didn't gasp. She didn't run to me. She didn't even blink. Instead, she tossed the dish towel onto the counter, crossed her arms, and sighed. Jesus, Helen, she snapped. You're always stirring up drama. I looked up, still cradling my arm, lips trembling. She kept going. We feed you. We let you live here, and this is how you repay us? By causing scenes in the middle of dinner? I wanted to ask if she had lost her mind, if she'd really just watched her husband, my son, throw boiling water at me, and somehow decided I was the problem. But I was too stunned, too tired. And for what? She added, her voice rising. Attention? Is that what this is? The back of my throat tightened. We have jobs. We have a child. We don't need a whole damn circus every time you open your mouth. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Every word landed like a slap, not loud, not fast, but deliberate, calculated. Each syllable stripped something off me. I looked toward the little table in the corner. Jamie was still sitting there, his tiny hand holding the juice box I had just given him. He looked at me, wide-eyed, lips parted. He didn't cry. He didn't ask if I was okay. He just froze. And it wasn't his fault. He was 6. He was learning, through silence, what love did and didn't look like. I turned back to them. Evan still hadn't moved. He stood by the stove, breathing heavily, eyes avoiding mine. I waited. Waited for a moment of guilt, a flicker of regret, a whisper of, I'm sorry. Nothing. Not one word. Not one step toward me. So I stepped back instead. Slowly, carefully. The wet floor shifted under my feet. I braced myself against the counter, the burn screaming with each movement. Still, no one reached for me. I turned, walked out of the kitchen. My arm throbbed with each heartbeat, raw and angry. But somehow, the silence behind me was louder. I passed the living room, where I used to sit and read Jamie bedtime stories. I passed the hallway, where Evan once cried out for Mama when he scraped his knee. Now, not even a whisper. When I reached my bedroom, I closed the door, gently, then locked it. I slid down against the wood, my legs shaking, my breath shallow, and still, no one knocked, no one came. I peeled off the wet fabric from my arm. tears stinging the corners of my eyes. I wrapped it in a clean towel, pressed it gently. The pain radiated like fire. But what cut deeper was realizing this. I was no longer a mother in their eyes. I was an extra mouth, a background character, a placeholder from the past they didn't want to honor, just tolerate. And even that, they had run out of patience for. For years, I told myself they were just stressed, just busy, just young. I was wrong. What they were was cruel, not loud, not violent, but steady, quiet, dismissive in a way that eroded me slowly, day by day. Until tonight. Tonight was not quiet. Tonight was a breaking, and somehow, that was when I began to remember who I was. That night, I didn't sleep. The pain in my arm had dulled to a slow, steady throb, the kind that seeps into your bones and makes your whole body feel heavy. I sat on the edge of the bed, the same bed I'd slept in for the past 12 years, in the smallest room of the house I used to own. The walls felt closer that night, like they were listening. I looked around the room, nothing fancy, a chipped nightstand, a lamp with a faded shade, a stack of books I never had time to finish because I was always busy doing someone else's dishes. And in the corner, the old pine wood dresser. It still smelled like cedar and dust and years gone by. I stood up, slowly, carefully. The bandage I'd made from a towel was already soaked through, but I wasn't thinking about the burn anymore. I was thinking about the silence, how it had stretched, thick and deliberate, on the other side of my locked door. Not a knock, not a whisper, not even a fake, "Are you okay?" They wanted me gone. And for the first time, I realized I was ready to go. But not like they imagined, not quietly, not broken, and certainly not empty-handed. I opened the bottom drawer of the dresser, the one they never touched because it just held old stuff. Buried beneath a stack of flannel shirts and knitted scarves was a small, worn box. Wood, handcrafted. Frank gave it to me on our 5th anniversary, told me to use it for whatever mattered most. For years, it held birthday cards, lockets, notes Jamie wrote me as a toddler. But tonight, it held something heavier. I lifted the lid. Inside, the deed. The original property title, crisp, though the corners had yellowed. The ink still bold, like it was written yesterday. And right there, at the top, was my name, Helen Monroe. No cosigner, no amendments, no joint ownership. Just me. My heart didn't race. It slowed, like the moment before a storm settles, before clarity breaks through. How had I forgotten? How had I let them make me believe I was just a guest in my own home? I ran my fingers along the thick paper. I remembered the day Frank and I signed it, 1988. He'd just been promoted to lead mechanic. I was working night shifts at the county hospital, doing double shifts so we could put down enough for the down payment. We skipped vacations, said no to new furniture, cooked every meal, at home, for 5 years. We laid the tile in the kitchen ourselves. He built the back porch with his own hands. Every corner of that house was a memory. Every nail was a sacrifice. And now, they treated it like it had always been theirs. Caitlin changing curtains like the history didn't matter. Evan scoffing at bills like he knew what it took to keep the lights on. They had assumed I handed it over. That time and silence meant surrender. They assumed wrong. I folded the deed. Gently. Not like a document, but like a vow. Like a flag I was about to raise again. I set it on the bed beside me, looked at it for a long time, not out of nostalgia, out of remembrance, because for too long, I had remembered everything except myself. That paper wasn't just ownership, it was proof. Proof that I mattered, that I built, that I owned. And no one, no tantrum, no scream, no pot of boiling water could take that from me. They wanted me gone? Fine, but I wasn't leaving like a ghost. I was leaving as the woman whose name was still on the deed, and they were about to remember it. I didn't leave in a rush. I wasn't thrown out. I wasn't dragged. There was no suitcase flying down the stairs, no shouting match at the front door. No one even knew I was going. That, in itself, told me everything. They didn't ask if I was okay. They didn't check on the burn. They didn't knock on my door, not even once. So, I opened my closet, pulled out the same old duffel I had used on vacations 20 years ago, back when family meant something. I packed only what mattered. A few changes of clothes, my toothbrush, the photo of Frank and me in front of the house the day we closed on it, him grinning, me holding the keys, and one paperback I never finished, its spine cracked, pages yellowing at the edges. I didn't take everything, just what I needed to remember I was still a person, still someone with a story, still someone with choice. As I zipped the bag shut, the room around me felt colder, not because of the weather, but because I could finally feel how unwelcome I'd been for years. The master bedroom used to be mine. Then I gave it to them. Said I didn't mind taking the small room, said it's only temporary. But temporary had turned into 12 years of shrinking my space, my voice, my presence. I slipped on my coat, pulled the sleeve gently over the burn. It still ached, but in a way that made me feel more alive than I had in months. I opened the bedroom door. The hallway was dark, silent. I walked past their room. I could hear the low hum of the TV, laughter, a sitcom maybe. They were comfortable in a house they hadn't paid for, a house they had treated like a motel, and me like a maid. I paused at the hallway mirror, looked at myself. Not the face I remembered. Older now, softer, maybe, but stronger too. I used to smile out of habit. Now I just stared. There was nothing left to pretend. I walked past the kitchen. The stove was clean, the table set for two. No one would miss me at dinner. I gripped the door handle. The front door creaked the way it always had. Frank used to say it gave the house character. I stepped out onto the porch. The night air hit my face. Cold, crisp, full of unfamiliar freedom. And still, not a sound from inside. No, "Where are you going?" No, "Are you okay?" Just the kind of silence that speaks louder than any scream ever could. I walked down the steps, slowly, carefully. My knees weren't what they used to be, but that night, they felt steady. The bus station was 4 blocks away. I didn't even mind the walk. I passed the mailbox, still had their last name taped over mine. That was going to change. At the corner, I turned back, just once. The porch light was still on, the curtains still drawn. They didn't come to the window, didn't wonder where I'd gone, didn't care. And somehow, That freed me, even more. I kept walking. At the station, I paid in cash. One way, to a town they wouldn't remember. A place they'd never visited, but I had. Years ago, it used to be a little retreat. Now, it would be my beginning. On the bus, I found a seat near the back. No one sat beside me. I didn't mind. I rested the bag on my lap, placed my hand gently over it, the way I once held my son when he was small. Back when love still flowed freely between us. The bus pulled away. Lights flickered overhead. The windows rattled with each bump in the road. But my breath stayed even. My spine stayed straight. I didn't cry. Not a single tear. Because leaving isn't always weakness. Sometimes it's the strongest thing you'll ever do.
I hadn't spoken to April in nearly 20 years. We met back in nursing school. Two women too stubborn to quit and too poor to buy coffee without splitting the cost. We were roommates, study partners, confidants. She used to braid my hair during night shifts just to keep me from falling asleep between rounds. Then life happened. She moved to Portland, got married, changed careers, twice. I stayed, raised a son, worked double shifts, built a home, lost a husband. The last I heard, she'd become a lawyer, specializing in elder rights, someone had told me. I wasn't sure if it was still true, but I remembered her number. Funny how the brain forgets birthdays, but remembers the ones who made us feel safe. I sat at the kitchen table of the little cottage I had returned to, not much more than 4 walls and an honest breeze, and stared at the rotary phone for a long while. Then I picked it up, dialed slow. 3 rings. "April Carson," a familiar voice answered. "This is she." I hesitated. My breath caught. "It's me," I said. "Helen." Silence. Then a gasp. Oh my God, Helen? Is it really you? Are you okay?" I swallowed hard. "I've been better," I said, "but I'm still standing, and I need your help." She didn't ask questions, didn't push. She just said, "I'm in. Whatever it is, I'm in." 3 days later, her car pulled into the gravel driveway in a cloud of dust and pine needles. She stepped out wearing jeans, a navy blazer, and that same no-nonsense bun she used to wear when we had anatomy exams. We didn't hug right away. We just looked at each other. 2 lives, 2 women, dozens of years between us, and yet still connected. Then she smiled, and we held each other like time had never passed. Inside, I laid out the paperwork, every last piece, utility bills, tax returns, bank statements, and most importantly, the deed. She sat across from me, reading slowly, her fingers tracing the county seal, the signature, the date. "This is gold," she whispered. "Uncontested, no joint owner, still active, still yours." "They never asked," I said quietly. "They just took over, and I let them." She looked up. "That ends now." We spent the next 2 hours combing through my memories like a courtroom record. April took notes in a yellow legal pad, dates, names, incidents. "Tell me everything," she said. So I did. I told her about the time Caitlin hid my back pain meds because she said I was faking, about the snowstorm they left me in while they went on a weekend trip to Gatlinburg, about how I was told to eat in the kitchen, not at the holiday table, about the birthday cake with everyone's name but mine. I showed her the burn. Still raw, still visible. She didn't cry, but her jaw clenched tight. "This is elder abuse, Helen," she said, plain and simple. I looked down. My hand shook, not from fear, from rage, long buried and finally surfacing. "You're not being cruel by standing up," April said gently. "You're correcting a story they rewrote without your consent." Her pen moved faster now. "We'll file an emergency eviction. We'll attach medical documentation, eyewitness statements if needed. With this deed and this history, they won't have a leg to stand on." I exhaled slowly. It felt like releasing a breath I'd been holding for a decade. "Are you ready?" she asked. I thought of Evan's face, his silence, his cruelty. I thought of Jamie watching, learning how women are treated in silence. I thought of Frank, his signature on that deed, a promise he never meant for me to forget. "Yes," I said, "I'm ready." And for the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving. I was fighting back. It took exactly 2 weeks. 2 weeks from the moment April submitted the papers to the county clerk. 2 weeks of waiting, not with fear, but with a strange kind of calm. Then the call came. "The order's approved," she said. "Signed, stamped, served tomorrow morning. They'll have 5 days to vacate." I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just whispered, "Thank you." That night I sat by the window of my cottage with the lights off. The quiet wrapped around me like a second skin. The stars blinked through the trees like old friends. I didn't sleep much, and by morning it had begun. 2 patrol cars rolled up the driveway of the house I had once built with Frank. The officers stepped out, badges gleaming in the morning light, clipboards in hand. April had already explained the process. They'd knock, they'd state the order, they'd give the occupants 5 days. No negotiation, no drama, only law. And that law finally had my name on it. I wasn't there to witness it. I didn't need to be. But I could imagine it. Evan opening the door, confused then angry. Caitlin, red-faced and loud, trying to argue with paperwork. And Jamie, watching. Again. Too young to understand, too old to forget. I prayed someone would comfort him because they weren't being evicted by a stranger. They were being evicted by the woman they'd burned, the woman they called deadweight, the woman who once held every brick of that house with calloused hands and quiet hope. That afternoon the phone rang. I saw the name before I heard the voice, Evan. I let it ring twice before I pressed silence. He called again, and again. The 4th time I answered, but I said nothing. His voice cracked through the receiver like a glass breaking. "What the hell did you do, Mom?" Silence. "You evicted us? Are you serious?" Still I said nothing. "Where are you even staying?" His tone changed, softer, pleading. "You think this is some kind of game? You think you can just throw us out?" He paused, then quieter. "Please, look, we were just stressed, okay? Things got heated." "But we're your family." That word hung in the air. Family. Like it was supposed to erase pain, like it could rewrite history, like it gave them the right to wound and stay. "We can fix this," he whispered. "You don't have to do this. Just talk to me." But I had talked. For years. Through every casserole left uneaten, every birthday forgotten, every insult swallowed like medicine. They didn't listen then. Why should I speak now? So I breathed, long and slow. And then I hung up. Not in anger, not in revenge, but in finality, because some silences are louder than shouting. 5 days passed, and just like that, they were gone. I didn't see the moving truck, didn't watch them load the boxes, didn't care what they took.
They had filled that house with entitlement and noise, but nothing in it ever belonged to them. Not the walls, not the floors, not the roof, and certainly not the woman who built it. By sunset, the house was empty. Not hollow, just ready for something better. And me? I was sitting in my cottage, a bowl of warm soup in front of me, my bandaged arm finally healing, and my name on every document, on the house, on the deed, on the eviction order. Mine, mine again, mine always. And for the first time in a very long time, I didn't feel small. I felt like a mountain. I didn't move back in. I could have. Legally, emotionally, financially. It was mine. But something inside me knew that house no longer needed to be mine. It needed to become something more. It had held too much pain, too many silences, too many unspoken humiliations, in rooms that once echoed with laughter. I didn't want to repaint those walls. I wanted to repurpose them. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I placed an ad. Not on Zillow, not through a fancy agency, just a handwritten note in the church bulletin, and a call to the local community center. House available for rent. No credit check required. Must be 60+ years old. Must need a place to rest. I didn't expect a call right away, but it came 3 days later. Her name was Mavis, 72. Soft voice, cracked with the kind of tiredness life doesn't always heal. She'd been sleeping in her car behind a laundromat. Her daughter had told her, "You've outlived your welcome." I didn't ask for more. Pain recognizes pain. We don't need each other's full story to understand what abandonment feels like. She came the next morning, just one suitcase and a folded quilt with daisies on it. When she stepped into the house, my house, she froze. Her eyes filled with disbelief, like someone had told her heaven was real and she had just walked into it. "There's heat in here," she whispered. "Yes," I said gently. "And hot water, clean towels, and no one yelling." She covered her mouth, started to cry. I didn't hug her. I just opened the pantry and showed her the shelf I'd stocked with soup and tea and applesauce. "You're safe now," I said. "I promise." That night I lit a candle and wrote a letter to myself. Not for memory, for clarity. It said, "You took back what was yours, not to hoard it, but to heal it. And now it lives again." The next week I partnered with a nonprofit for displaced seniors, especially women, especially the ones called too much, especially the ones left behind after they gave everything. I told them I had a house. I'd cover the maintenance, and half of any rent would go to their shelter fund. They didn't believe me at first. "Why are you doing this?" the coordinator asked. "Because I needed a place once," I said, and no one opened the door. Now I do. Mavis wasn't the last. Soon after, another woman moved in, Mildred, pushed out of her home by her son after she was diagnosed with early arthritis. She needed a single-story house with quiet floors and steady heat. I handed her the keys, no questions. They live together now, like sisters in some quiet rebellion. And that house? It's warmer now, not just in temperature, but in memory. It's no longer a prison of polite cruelty. It's a haven. I carved a sign by hand in the evenings. When the sky turned pink and the trees whispered peace,
I hung it on the mailbox where the old family name used to be. It reads, "A safe place, built by a mother who was once thrown out of the house she built." I didn't need applause. I didn't want revenge. I wanted restoration. And that's exactly what I created. Brick by brick, name by name, scar by scar.
My son wanted me gone. So I left. But I didn't walk away like a ghost. I didn't disappear into silence like they expected. I walked out with my head high and the title deed in my bag. I left the house, yes, but I also took the roof they thought was theirs. Because they forgot who built it, who paid for it, who sacrificed for it. They thought I'd go quietly. I'll glad cry, plead, beg to be let back in. But I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I didn't write angry letters. I filed paperwork. I sat in a courthouse and signed my name, slowly, clearly, like a woman reclaiming her voice. And that name, it was always on the deed. They just stopped looking. I took back what was already mine, not with violence, with proof, with law, with unwavering resolve. Because justice doesn't always come with shouting. Sometimes it comes with stillness, with a woman who's had enough and finally remembers she never needed permission to exist.